Media. As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now. And what's up, Obscurians? It's time for another episode of Obscurity Now, the show that takes a look at weird and almost forgotten pieces of media. Then we decide if they should be remembered for all of human history or tossed into the black void of obscurity, never to be heard from again. My name is Steve, and I'm one of the hosts, and with me, his side hustle is selling George Hamilton brand spray-on tan. It's
Yahel. Hello, Steve. How did you know about my side hustle?
Well, I just assumed the only reason that you recommended this movie was to somehow tie it in, so you could come on here and be like, buy George Hamilton brand spray-on tan, ladies and gentlemen, or kids.
Yeah, we also have a line of veneers coming out soon as well. So.
Oh, do you think he had fake teeth?
No, he doesn't. But these are veneers that are like shaped like George Hamilton's real teeth.
Oh.
Come on.
I got a question right off the bat. Is this the first thing outside of like a Conan O'Brien sketch where you actually saw George Hamilton in it, like acting?
No, I've seen him in other things, but
like what?
It's funny because as I was watching the movie, I was like, what other things have I seen him in? Because I know I have, but I couldn't think of any. And I want to say though that at least like half the things I've seen him in, he's playing himself.
Yeah, and this is no different. But yeah, I can't remember if it was like Naked Gun or Conan O'Brien or maybe SNL in the 90s. But yeah, he would always show up in like random sketches playing himself. I can't even remember what he was doing. But yeah, he was just sort of like a punchline to a joke like back in the 90s because of his insane tan. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, he has been in a lot of things where he's not playing himself.
Right.
But, I mean, they're not really, like, things that I've watched. I mean, I do know that he was in Doc Hollywood.
Doc. Oh, that's like a Michael J. Fox movie, right? From, like, late 80s, early 90s. I don't think I've ever seen that. Yeah.
It was kind of a hit. I know I watched it, but I couldn't tell you anything about it other than I remember he was in it. I think he plays a doctor in it. But yeah, he's been like on a bunch of things, but I don't know. How many times have you watched The Happy Hooker Goes to Washington?
None. I mean...
Well, he was in that in 1977. Maybe you should have been watching
to me, that
He was also in Sextet the same year.
Both of those sound like 70s pornos, but I assume that they're not. I mean, we'll get to that section soon enough. Just to hip everyone as to what we're talking about, we're discussing the holiday TV movie classic, a very cool Christmas, not starring Vanilla Ice, which, I mean, it sounds like he should be in this, right?
Yeah. Maybe we should have. We haven't covered that.
What? The
Cool
Vanilla
as Ice, have we?
No, we have not. No. I mean,
I've watched that movie like 2 times at least of my own volition.
I watched the Riff Tracks version. It's actually on Tubi. Speaking of Tubi, you can also go watch A Very Cool Christmas because, man, we are going to spoil the hell out of the plot to A Very Cool Christmas, and you don't want to be left behind.
Yeah, we could have watched Too Cool for Christmas. Did you learn about this?
I did. I mean, you can... I'll start and then you can take it away. Basically, there's 2 versions of this movie, and one is called A Very Cool Christmas, and another one is called Too Cool for Christmas. And you can actually hear in the lyrics, in the background to some of the music, where they actually sing... The chorus is, "Too cool for Christmas." Like, did you notice that?
I did not, but kudos to you for paying attention to the lyrics.
I'm a film detective over here, a film forensic detective, if you will. But no, why are there 2 versions of this movie, Yahel?
Well,
One
the
is
version we
enough.
watched, A Very Cool Christmas, which you can see on Tubi. I didn't check to see if Too Cool for Christmas is on there. It would have been funny though, if one of us would have watched Too Cool and the other one Very Cool.
Yeah.
But basically, they're the same movie. The A Very Cool Christmas, again, the one we watched is like the Canadian version, and then the other one is made for us apparently more progressive Americans.
No, it's
Too Cool for
according to IMDb, it's the other way around. The
Oh, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Canadian version. Well, yeah, go ahead and explain. Go ahead and explain.
So, A Very Cool Christmas, as we'll get into it in the plot, but a lot of it centers around your typical heterosexual upper middle class family. So you got a man
They're
and a
called
wife.
trads these days, Yahel. Trads.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, we don't know. It's never confirmed if she's a trad wife, but it does.
Why wouldn't she be?
I don't know. She might have a job, Steve. That's very misogynistic.
Oh, I
of you
mean,
to
I didn't
assume.
know that a trad family meant that the wife didn't have a job. I think it just
Oh, I thought you were
refers.
talking about trad wives in particular. Which
I
is
don't
another.
know what a trad wife is.
Ah, well, Steve, apparently I'm spending more time in the right-wing part of TikTok than you.
Apparently you are. Do tell.
Videos making fun of trad wives, which are like
Sure.
women who want to do like the 1950s traditional wife stay-at-home role. Anyway, but back to the topic at hand. So, Too Cool for Christmas is actually the more progressive Canadian version of the movie where there's everything's exactly the same except that there's two dads. In fact, one of the two dads is the dad from A Very Cool Christmas that we watched. So basically, the scenes where in A Very Cool Christmas it's the mom and dad. They did the scenes the exact same way, except it's
Two dads. My two dads. Just like the sitcom from the 50s. Wait, that is one,
But
right?
yeah, Yeah. But yeah, they just like shot the same scenes pretty much from what I saw. It's just one of the movies has two dads and one of the movies has a dad and a mom.
But I mean, that's great for the guy who plays the dad who's in both versions, because that means he could play straight or gay. I mean, he goes both ways. Good.
Yeah.
It's good for his career.
It's almost like he's an actor able to play different kind of. Well, actually, from the clips that I've seen, I mean, there's literally no change to his
Right.
character.
Yeah.
at
I mean,
all.
I don't even. They probably like don't even like kiss or anything. But I would be interested to see. Remember the when
The barbecue scene.
yes, the barbecue scene. That's what
So
I
there's
was.
the barbecue scene where, in A Very Cool Christmas, the dad, is like barbecuing and he hugs the mom and gives her a kiss and like wraps his arms around from behind. So yeah, I would assume that that's in there. I mean, because like I said, the clips that I saw, everything was verbatim. It's just another guy was reading the wife's lines, and it works just fine.
What a time to be alive. What a time
And I know,
to be
like on
alive.
like I saw a scene of them on the couch together, and they're like, I mean, they're not canoodling per se, but they're like being a little touchy with each other, like a married couple would be. So, I don't know.
America just wasn't ready for that back in 2004.
And unfortunately, we seem to be even less ready for it, at least here in my state of Florida. Unfortunately.
You want to dive a little bit deeper in first, I guess before we dive too deep, obviously it's this is the recording of this. It's the first Sunday of December, so which means we're going to be covering nothing but Christmas crap for the rest of the month. And I say that lovingly, but that's what we do here. That's our traditions. We're a trad podcast, is what we are. All about traditions here. Isn't that right, my hetero Puerto Rican life mate?
Yes. Yes. Whatever you say.
Way to take the ball and run with it. All right, here we go. Here's the bumper.
Welcome to your feature presentation.
Alrighty, so we've A Very Cool Christmas, which is the version we watched, premiered December 20th, 2004 in both the US and Canada. And here's the synopsis. 16-year-old Lindsay decides to give Santa Claus an extreme makeover. It's 1 hour and 30 minutes, and it's rated TV 14. And it's directed by a guy named Sam Irvin, who he started out basically doing like some B movies, like for Full Moon. I don't know if you're familiar with the Full Moon world, but he did Oblivion 1 and 2. And I actually watched some of the trailer for Oblivion 1. It looks pretty awesome.
Oblivion, the Tom Cruise movie?
Oh no, oh no. This is like early 80s, like late 70s, early 80s when this came out. Yeah, it's no, I don't think there's any relation between these two movies. But he also did Elvira's Haunted Hills, and then basically.
I'd like to. Never mind.
Yeah, yeah, right. And from then on, basically he just does tons of like TV movies. There's one called Pretty Little Stalker. I mean, that's got to be a winner. And I definitely got TV movie vibes from this movie because that's exactly what it was. All right, but the writer here is one Michael Gilbert, and he mostly writes cartoons. He actually hasn't written very much. He did.
That's interesting because he plays Chuck also in the movie The Mall Guard.
I thought it was his brother. Wait, no, you're right. I mean, it's him.
Unless they're both named Michael Gilbert, and that's some confusing parenting. You want to talk about some confusing parenting? Hey.
Michael, it's time to go to school. No, you're right. Yeah. So basically, he wrote himself into the movie, and I mean, spoiler alert.
But I was gonna say he has very cartoon-like expressions. Like he moves like a cartoon. He expresses his face like a cartoon. He's very cartoon-like.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, he wrote I don't know if you remember that Total Drama animated show, but he wrote that, and then he wrote another version of it called Total Drama World Tour, something called Wayside, and then the latest Buzz, whatever that is.
Well, he fancies himself some kind of comedian, which I think you can tell he's trying to. I believe use this movie as a vehicle to jumpstart his own Jim Carrey-esque career.
Oh yeah, I got Jim Carrey vibes. I got Michael Scott from The Office, like a little bit of Steve Carell mixed in there.
That is very complimentary of you. You're being. I don't think he's bad or anything, but I don't think he's that nuanced.
No, I mean, honestly, he made the movie for me.
Oh, interesting. Well, you'll be happy to know he has a comedy special called Michael Gelbart All New Smash Hits.
You know what? I would actually like to check that out, but yeah, I don't want to say too much. Anyway, who are some of the thespians who performed in A Very Cool Christmas?
Okay, well, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because there's kind of a lot of characters, but a lot of them haven't done much of anything of note, so I'll just give you their names. But
like this nobody, Donna Mills.
I mean, aside from George Hamilton, I'd say she's the most famous one.
I was being facetious. Yeah.
Oh. So we've got, I guess might as well mention again, Michael Gelbart. He plays Chuck, which is like a security mall cop.
Yeah, there was like there was a trend of like mall cop movies going on in the early 2000s.
I will say this: I would rather watch his acting as a mall cop over Kevin James mall cop any day of the week.
I concur.
But I also don't think Kevin James is that funny. Like,
yeah, me either.
He's terrible. His show, King of Queens, is terrible too. His stand-up isn't good, and he's kind of a oddly shaped man. There's just nothing to like.
Whoa! Are you fat shaming Kevin James?
I am curious to see what the shape of his skull would look like under a X-ray. It's like a trapezoid on its side or something. I don't know. It's something's not right there.
It's a Tetris piece.
Maybe a tetrahedron. Anyway. Enough geometry talk. Moving right along, we've got, of course, George Hamilton playing Santa Claus. As I mentioned, you might know him from Sextet from 1977.
And the happy hooker goes to Washington.
Or you might know him from Roots. He was in Roots.
I could see that. But playing a slave, right?
He's not that good of an actor. He is pretty tan, though. Anyways, he's been in a bunch of stuff, but again, I think he's kind of most famous for being George Hamilton somehow. Mm-hmm. Just a handsome, forever tan man whose hairline seems to only get better with age.
Right, and who also just sort of he just sort of has this like it's kind of like a flat line of like acting. It's very laid back, at least for this movie, I'd say.
Yeah, like he seems like he's always just like the chill guy at a party.
Yes.
How I would describe him.
Right.
But he's like if Ric Flair had some kind of stability in his life.
Yeah, I could see that. Like if Ric Flair was on Downers, maybe.
Yeah. Not to say that George Hamilton has no energy. It's just Ric Flair has a little too much.
Right.
Anyways, moving right along. Lindsay, who is kind of our main character, she is played by Brooke Nevin. We are made to believe that she is 16 years old, even though she looks more like she's pushing 25 to 27.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. I mean, all the high school kids look like they're in their mid-20s or early 30s, which is typical for this era.
Sure.
Anyway, she's been in a bunch of stuff, 90 things, according to IMDb. A lot of guest spots. She was on 27 episodes of something called Call Me Fitz, which I'm guessing is what she's most known for. I know her from here.
Yeah, same here.
Moving right along, we've got Donna Mills, who plays Mrs. Claus. She's not in this very much. I think she's kind of mostly known for Knots Landing than anything, but she's been in a bunch of stuff, General Hospital, a lot of things like that, your mom liked.
Yeah, probably.
Probably. All right, moving right along, we've got playing Paige, who is her, like, Lindsay's best friend, is played by Adrian Carter. She's done a lot of voiceover stuff more recently, or, well, like 20 years ago at this point. But
you think she had sex with Frank Welker?
Maybe. Didn't Frank Welker do some My Little Pony?
Yeah, he did.
Well, she did a bunch of My Little Pony, so...
I bet she did. I don't know what I'm doing.
There's no Star Trek connection to this episode, but there were, like... people in this were in things with people from Star Trek, like Roots, obviously, LeVar Burton. That's kind of like his first real big break. He was in that. This girl, Adrian Carter, was in an episode of Beyond Belief, hosted by Jonathan Frakes.
I love your dedication.
All right, moving right along. Ryan McDonald. He plays the hottest guy, the hottest 35-year-old in high school.
I love I'm just going to go ahead and say he is like the typical like early 2000s, I don't know, douchebag kind of look or whatever. But anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. He's like an emo jock. Douche.
Yeah, somehow he's both at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a look to him. I'll give him that.
I'm sensitive, but I want to have sex with you.
Well, did you know he was in 6 episodes of Battlestar Galactica?
The remake? Well, yeah, obviously the remake. No.
Yeah, no, Steve. Steve, he's actually 75 years old.
Wow, he's well preserved.
Yeah, I think he drank some of George Hamilton's blood or something.
He's using the tanning ointment. That's what he's doing.
Exactly. Anyways, like a minor character. I think he was one of the pilots, Gonzo. But like he's one of those guys. He has a line or two,
right?
A few episodes, and then I'm sure he gets killed. Anyways, moving right along. We've got. I mean, that's kind of the main cast that comes up a lot. Although there is also Alexa, which is Lindsay's little sister, played by Jodelle Furland. I actually did recognize her from something that she's much better in, Dark Matter, which was a Sci-Fi Channel original series. It got canceled a few years ago. It only got 3 seasons. There was also a guy in it from something we watched like a week or 2 ago. I can't remember, but from one of the RoboCop things.
Nice.
He was in it. But it's a pretty good show. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's pretty good. Anyways, I think she was also in Silent Hill, I want to say. I think she was like the little girl from Silent Hill. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, she was Alessa from Silent Hill. I think those are the 2 kind of things that she's most recognized from. That's kind of everybody that I thought was worth mentioning.
Well, you already sort of did we talk about the dad and some of the stuff he was on?
Oh my God, yes. I am so sorry. The dad, his name is Stan, I think, right?
Stan.
Stan. He's played by Barkley Hope. You've seen him in The Tooth Fairy. No, he's actually been in a lot of stuff. He's one of those guys, again, you recognize his face, but you never see him like as the leading man in something. I guess people would probably know him from Riverdale, though, because he was like on a bunch of episodes of Riverdale.
Okay.
Oh, are you a Riverdale head?
We used to watch it. I mean, it was Sandy, she wanted to watch it, and as a longtime Archie reader, I was curious. And depending on the season, it was actually pretty entertaining. It's like this.
Well, I want to watch it because I know it gets like it much like Family Matters. It becomes like sci-fi and supernatural.
Oh yeah, I mean it's way over the top. And it knows it. It leans into the camp. But depending on the season, it's either really good or really kind of forgettable. We don't really watch it anymore. I don't even know if it's on, but yeah, for a couple seasons there, definitely worth a watch. Let's become a Riverdale podcast. No.
All right, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Sparkly Hope, and I think that's the only people I was going to mention, unless you had somebody to mention.
No, I think you pretty much covered everyone worth talking about.
Yeah. I mean, if you're curious, Adam Harrington plays the other husband in the progressive version of Too Cool for Christmas.
Stop! You're gonna hurt our numbers on Rumble. Stop!
I'm sure we've got no numbers on Rumble. Fine by me. All right. Shall we jump into the plot? I almost said plot.
Jingle those bells, buddy.
Oh. All right. So we open up with Alexa. Again, that's a little sister trying to wake up her big sister, Lindsay. And we get an early indication of the quality of writing when Lindsay says, "What excuse could you have for interrupting my REM?"
Yeah.
And the line is delivered because the girl that plays Lindsay, she's not a terrible actress per se.
Here she's
not. But this opening line is terrible. It's like whenever a line, I think it's like whenever she thinks a line is stupid, she just cannot bring herself to say it convincingly.
I hear you, but yeah, this definitely sort of set I would say it set a precedent that I thought that she was just going to be absolutely awful. And I was just like, that's your I've been asleep voice. It's just, yeah.
I feel like they shot some of this like in order, which for those that don't know, that's not very common.
No.
But the reason why I say that is because early on in the film, she's very like clueless, like the movie Clueless. She's a lot like Alicia Silverstone's character. She kind of talks like that. And that's kind of how she delivers this first line. And maybe like the lines, the first like 15, 20 minutes. And then suddenly it stops.
Right. Yeah. And also the lighting here is really weird. I felt like it was midday when she was being woken up. I'm like, geez, Lindsay, did you go to the castle and get trashed last night or something? And little sis has to come in and wake you up in the middle of the day. But then they go downstairs and the lighting is a little bit better and it feels more like morning.
Like morning.
But I feel like the lighting is weird all over this movie.
Yeah, the lighting is all over the place, especially once they start to use green screens.
Oh yeah, that's fun. Yeah.
All right, so Lindsay finally agrees to go downstairs because her little sister reminds her that it's Christmas. So Lindsay's like, "Oh, presents!" So she goes down there. The parents are down there. The straight parents are down there, and
thank you for mentioning that. I was almost offended for a second.
You know what would have been hilarious?
What?
Because it turns out that this is a dream if she went down there and the gay parents were down there.
So you're saying Lindsay is very far right. I get it.
Yeah, because this does turn into a nightmare for her.
Right.
So because as she's opening the presents down there, and this stuff, like, this movie's so weird because, man, there's like some stuff that's like funny, but then there's also some stuff that's just like not funny, and there's some stuff that you're like, this should be funny, but I'm not laughing.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree with you. There's
I feel like they didn't like set a consistent tone. Like sometimes they're super over the top campy, as in this opening, and it is a dream sequence, so I guess it kind of makes sense. But other times stuff is taken like deadly serious. So it's just a little...
Right. I feel like I don't know if you've exactly gotten to it yet, but yeah, so this is basically the cold open, and it looks like the editor had a lot of fun when she starts opening the presents, and like it's like they speed up the the speed.
Yeah, there's like sound effects too thrown in. Like the first thing she opens up is a Chanel. Her first present is a Chanel purse, but like the little Chanel C's like fall off when they fall off. It goes like boing.
Yeah, very Xena season 4.
Yeah. But anyway, so like it's like, okay, so the first present is the Chanel purse, but it's a fake. She screams about that. She opens up their next present. There's a tag on the jeans that says last year's jeans.
Right.
So stupid.
Yeah.
Then she opens up another one. It's a pair of not Nike shoes, but Zyke shoes, and instead of just do it, it says go ahead and get it over with or something like that.
See, I've always enjoyed Zykes. I don't know what everybody always talks trash about them, you know?
Anyways, the parents start laughing like maniacs, and she yells about how she was good all year. And then in the vein of Darth Vader screaming, "No!" she screams, "Santa!"
Right.
With an above head shot of her.
Yeah,
It's pretty funny.
She ran right, to the area where they could like hang the camera from upstairs. Basically, it was. It was perfect.
Yeah. So, anyways, now we see like Lindsay actually wakes up and she goes to school.
Wait, before we get too far away, and I forget. Okay, so already the questions start appearing in the back of my mind. So, in her dream, she was asleep and dreamed that her sister came and woke her up. Like that doesn't make any sense. At least by the way they shot it. Like you think
you've never had a dream where you're sleeping in the dream,
and then not someone come and wake me up. I mean, I've woken up on my own in a dream, but like I wouldn't dream that I was asleep and then you came and woke me up. Like that just doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, it's a dream, so anything can happen in a dream. Yeah. So I think you're looking too much into it.
No, but dreams are usually like here. This is the way it would make sense to me if it was shot from Lindsay's POV and like they fade in and she's looking like right at her sister and the sister's looking right at us.
Wait, you've never had a dream where you see that you're in the dream dreaming? You've never had a third person camera view of your
No, I have.
dream?
I guess I have, but never while I was asleep in the dream.
Well, Steve, this is why you lack the creative talent of one Michael Gerber or whatever his name was.
Michael Gerber? Gilbart, you mean?
Gilbart? Sorry, I didn't mean to make fun of your favorite comedian.
All right, whatever.
You lack his vision, I guess.
I guess I do. This is it's really Inception-y right here. It's just too much for my...
This is where Chris Nolan got the idea from.
Well, he actually stole it from a DuckTales episode, but that's another podcast. Anyway. All right, moving on.
So real life Lindsay, she goes to school. We see that she lives in a very nice house. She has a very nice car, like a red convertible. Isn't a red convertible what they had in Clueless also, actually?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this movie it's Clueless meets, I don't know, Ernest Saves Christmas.
All right. So Lindsay picks up her friend, and they talk about her dream, and they make some jokes. There's some stupid jokes in there about low carb diets. This is where we find out that Lindsay is 16. And basically the gist of the conversation is that her best friend's family, whose name I already forgot what it was, Paige. Paige's family is going away on the ski trip, and Paige wants Lindsay to go. I mean, Lindsay wants to go too, but Lindsay hasn't told her family that she won't be home for Christmas because she's going to go on the ski trip. So herein lies, I guess, our first plot point.
Right.
So then we get this flashback, one of many flashbacks, / one of many montages, kind of.
Oh, there's so many montages in this movie. At least 4.
Yeah. So we see like where I guess Lindsay's remembering a previous Christmas where her uncle showed up dressed up like Santa, and he's overweight, and for a beard he's got like cotton balls glued to his face, and naturally he's just asking for more potatoes to be added to his plate or whatever. So this is Lindsay talking about how lame their Christmases are.
Right. But don't worry, that uncle shows up later if you if you're worried.
Yes, he does. I actually legit laughed out loud later. Just to spoiler, when the uncle shows up later for like real Christmas, he's there as Santa again, and he's got a beard on, but this time the beard is a white grocery
Plastic
store
bag. Yeah. I don't know. That was one of those
so
things
stupid.
that
It was so stupid.
felt like I should have laughed at, but didn't. Sort of just rolled my eyes.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of felt the same way. Like I should be laughing at this, but by then the movie really starts to drag. I feel like
No, it drags
so
really
like,
bad in the middle.
that
as
too.
we're about to see.
So we're at school now, and Paige and Lindsay are walking around, and they see a boy coming down the hall towards them, and this is Anderson, our hottie. Anyways, so we find out Lindsay has a crush on him, and Lindsay gets all nervous and like tries to like hide and behind a locker, but he comes up to them and starts talking to them, and coincidentally, him and his boys are also going on a ski trip, the exact same dates as Lindsay and Paige. So they're going to the same place also. So Lindsay and Paige are like, yeah, we'll see you there. Or more, Paige is like, yeah, we'll see you there. And Lindsay's kind of cold to him because we find out that Lindsay has been basically she has a crush on this guy, but she's been playing hard to get to the extreme. She's said that she's been like purposely ignoring him and like being rude to him all year
And waiting for her moment, which I love it because that definitely sounds like woman logic to me.
I don't know. I'm starting to think that Michael Gilbert or whatever has not had much luck with ladies. He may be a bit of an incel situation because later, as we see when we see so there's another part where Chuck, the security guard,
Chuck
talks
Lovely.
about. Or yeah, somebody like the girls recognize him and he's trying to get them in trouble. They're like, "Hey, didn't we see you on this dating show?"
Yeah.
And they cut to a clip from the dating show, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I think the date went great." He's wearing his mall outfit in the post-date interview, which is pretty fucking funny. And then and he's like, "Yeah, I might take her out for another date." And then they cut to the girl he went on a date with, and she just screams at the camera.
Yeah. See, stuff like that, the really like sort of I swear I think he's saved like the best jokes for himself, basically. But
Yeah, for sure.
Stuff like that really made me laugh hard. And if they could have had like more of that, then well, maybe we could have had something. But anyway.
Yeah, he's got another funny line later that
and
I'll
his
save.
monologue at the end when he's talking to the parents. Oh man, I was in tears. I was laughing so hard.
The monologue was pretty good. He committed.
did.
I got to give him that. All right, so we also then get this weird scene where like Lindsay's fantasizing about being on the trip with Anderson, and they're like on a romantic date. And at this point, Lindsay like tells Paige, "Okay, I'm definitely going on the trip," as if to imply. I guess now that her whole thing is like she's gonna go whether or not her parents give her permission.
Right. Yeah.
So Lindsay finally goes to talk to her parents about it, and she tries to convince them to celebrate Christmas on December 28th. And she does this with like by giving them like a presentation full of graphs, like paper graphs, explaining how much money they could save by celebrating a few days later. She almost accidentally like lets it slip to her little sister that Santa isn't real. What did you think about this whole thing with these charts? She had like a flip book with charts.
Yeah, I mean it's funny and over the top. I wouldn't say funny. I mean it's over the top and cartoony. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
This
is definitely like geared towards watching it with your family, if your family includes like a 12-year-old, 10-year-old, or something like that.
Right, or watching it with your two dads or two moms.
Yes, exactly.
Just make sure you get the right version.
All right. So Lindsay's parents say that what's the lesbian parents version called?
All right, so let's see. We've got a very cool Christmas.
Coolest Christmas, I guess.
What is it?
Probably just be the coolest Christmas.
The coolest Christmas. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, sorry. That was a bit anticlimactic, folks. All right, Lindsay tries to, like I said, Lindsay's convincing her parents, but they say that they don't want her to go. She her next attempt to convince him is by telling them that the hottest boy in school is going to be there. And I did kind of laugh at this. Like the dad sarcastically agrees because it's the hottest boy in school and not the second hottest boy, which knowing that there's like a version where the dad has a husband just makes it all the funnier.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
hey, in some other universe, he gets it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
This is the beginning of the multiverse, Yahel. Don't you get it?
That's right. This is going to be where Everything Everywhere All at Once 2 begins.
Oh God.
All right, the dad says no, and that's final. He walks away, and the mom, who looks like she's about 5 years older than Lindsay.
Yeah, Mom and Lindsay look around the same age.
Yeah. She says, I agree with your dad. And the mom kind of talks about how Lindsay's always selfish and always wants something, which is kind of an ongoing theme where Lindsay is worried about being selfish, worried about being perceived as selfish, but continues to be pretty selfish throughout 90% of the movie.
Yeah, it's weird, though. We talked about earlier how, clearly she's supposed to be like Alicia Silverstone from Clueless, but it's like she's not that dumb. And then they even say that she gets a straight A's at one point.
Yes, that's the next thing I had in my notes is that I should point out that Lindsay is portrayed as a ditz, but also gets straight A's. But wasn't Silverstone's character also pretty smart?
Well, I never actually saw Clueless.
I think so, because she wrote some computer program to pick out her clothes.
So is the idea that you can be book smart but still be, I don't know, sort of socially inept? I guess that's or still be selfish, I suppose.
Well, she's spoiled. She's spoiled is what it is.
Oh, are we talking about Clueless or this movie?
This movie, well, both actually.
Yeah.
But because in this movie, it's not like she. It's not so much that she's ditzy. It's just more like she's oblivious to the problems of people without money. I guess is or the lives of people without money. But we've got Creative KV here in the chat. He said, "Sometimes you got to be your own Santa. This is the real world. No fear."
Nice.
All right. So, anyways, so they tell her no. Lindsay and Paige go to the mall, and it sounds like from the conversation, Lindsay's she says she's gonna go on the trip regardless of what her parents say. This is when we're introduced to Chuck, the mall cop, and his introduction is him taking free samples from the food court from one of those guys that's giving you free bourbon chicken samples or something. And the guy's like, oh, you've taken too many. He's like, oh, basically he's just abusing his power, telling him, hey, I protect you people here in the mall. You guys owe me these. He makes some comment about oh, you're endangering the lives of young children and women by serving these samples on a sharp toothpick. I could write you up. And the guy's like, no, please take all the ones that you want. And some other mall cop shows up who's the new mall cop and kind of Chuck's lackey. I don't think we ever even get a name for him, do we?
No, that guy, he doesn't even serve any purpose to the plot. He's just, I'm guessing that his schedule probably didn't allow him to do the rest of the movie. They used him for one day. And do you think that it's an Asian guy? I don't think we even mentioned the actor in the casting part, but whatever. He's not much of
He's not in there that much. He's only in a couple scenes.
Is he doing a Chinese accent?
I couldn't tell. I got the feeling that this guy doesn't actually have the accent that he's putting on.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess if you're going to have a guy do a fake, somewhat racist accent, hire the Asian guy to do it, but real weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
It is weird.
Creative KV was asking in the chat if this is some kind of Disney special. No, I think this was Hallmark, I think, had it at some point, or Lifetime.
I guess it's just sort of like a virus. It's jumped around from channel to channel because, I couldn't find just sort of like a standalone premiere channel. But I imagine it would probably be Hallmark, something like that.
Yeah. So, so this is basically to establish that Chuck is a jerk. And, he, like all cops, he abuses his power, ACAB, you know what I'm saying?
He is the villain or antagonist of this film, even though, we'll see at the end. It's what was he ever going to do to stop Santa Claus, the magical being? But I guess he's more Lindsay's antagonist than anybody else.
Yeah, well, and, none of his, plans really make any sense.
Nope.
No, as we'll find out soon. So Paige and Lindsay are walking around the mall. They see one of those sit with Santa kind of things, whatever they call meet Santa things at the mall.
Meet and greet.
They make Yeah, they make this weird complaint about like the women working the Santa thing are like
Too
wearing
attractive.
too, yeah,
Yeah.
like they're too attractive, and they're like, oh, I guess it's something for the dads to look at. But I mean, they're not really wearing anything like revealing or anything. It's just whatever.
I'm like, were they trying to be meta for like the movie itself? Like,
I don't know.
yeah, it was weird.
But then we see that the mall Santa is walking into like a high-end clothing store. The guy working there, because the mall Santa is in the full mall Santa getup, and the guy working there is a big dick to Santa. Santa asks how much a suit costs, and the guy's like, if you have to ask how much it costs, you can't afford to
Right.
shop here, and Santa leaves.
Hmm.
Um, Creative, I was asking if they have a scene where they visit the Hallmark store. They do not. In fact, the store I mentioned is, oh no, I guess they do visit a few other stores, but it's like in a one of many montages.
Yes.
Okay, so so the mall cop. I'm sorry. Back to Paige and Lindsay, who walk past the mall cops, and the mall cop Chuck is talking about how much he hates teenagers.
Yeah.
And how he like he gets no thanks for the work he does to protect people at the mall, and that we've also found out that Chuck's dad was a captain in the police force, and that Chuck like tried out for the police force but didn't make it.
Hmm.
He
Yeah.
has some excuse. I can't remember what his excuse was.
Oh yeah, I can't remember, but yeah, you could tell that he is definitely the writer here because he's adding in all this backstory for Chuck that we really don't need.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like the movie could be like 20 minutes shorter if you cut out the Chuck
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, I actually by the end of the film, I was like, this isn't Lindsay's movie. This is Chuck's movie.
This is like Chuck's villain origin story,
Yeah,
basically.
basically.
So, anyways, the mall. By the way, if you hate teenagers, why work at a mall?
Yeah, it really makes no sense. Well, because he cares about them all.
Yeah,
According to his monologue at the end, he really cares about
yeah.
it, but it's too late.
So, anyways, so Chuck's plan is to get rid of teenagers, is to get these particular girls kicked out of the mall, Lindsay in particular, and then because he thinks like other teenagers will follow and stop
Right.
going to the mall.
Now, so you think that when the guy throws the hamburger at him, he uses that as an excuse to attack Lindsay? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, basically, because
Yeah.
so like you mentioned, like a hamburger gets thrown at
A
Chuck by these
hamburger
like punk
that
boys.
miraculously stays together, bun and meat.
Yeah,
all-
yeah, this hamburger, incredible.
Mhm.
Uh, it never falls apart. And so Chuck looks around to see like who threw it. He thinks it's Lindsay, and so he goes over there and he starts talking to them, and that he's going to give him a citation. And this is when they like say that they recognize him from like a dating show, and we get that clip I talked about earlier. And Chuck says, "Hey, if you ever do anything like that again, I will have you banned from the mall."
That's his like way of lashing out at people, basically. Like when people are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this guy was mean to me, so I'm gonna unfriend him on Facebook." Like that's basically what Chuck does.
Yeah, basically, except Chuck is kicking you off of Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
So the girls, for some reason, I can't remember why, they decide to go see Santa. I can't remember the reason why they came up to go see him, but they go. They don't sit on his lap. They're like, "We'll sit next to you, not on you. That's gross." And they're just dickheads to him.
Oh, yeah.
They're insulting his weight and his style. Lindsay's insulting his style, and she's like, "How could Miss Claus like you when you look like this?" And then weirdly, like as they get up to leave, and Santa Claus just takes in stride. He's like, "All right, well, why don't you two motherfuckers get out of here?" He doesn't say
Right.
that, but he kind of sent them on their way. Lindsay, like you can tell, she starts to feel bad about what she said as they're walking away. And Lindsay like is asking Paige if she thinks she's selfish. Paige says no. Blah blah blah. There's a lot of that. Lindsay goes back to the mall Santa and apologizes. Santa tells Lindsay about his marital troubles, complete with a flashback to Santa and Miss Claus cuddling on a couch before his work drove a wedge between them.
Yeah, I love how basically the catalyst for Santa's story is he and Mrs. Claus, they're not too active in the old boudoir, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, basically, Santa got too busy because you kids won't stop asking him for shit. That's basically what he says.
Yeah.
But
you have to do it. You have to say it like George Hamilton. It's like, oh yes, I got tired of you kids asking for more shit. Like it's in the most laid back way possible.
Yeah. But then he smiled. I don't know if George Hamilton's teeth are as white as they appear, or it's just that he's so tan that like by the contrast.
But wait, at this point though, he didn't look.
He's not tan.
Yeah, and that makes me think. Do you reckon that George Hamilton is like tan all the time, and then they put makeup on it to make him less tan?
I was gonna ask, dude. I had it in my notes to ask you if you thought that that's what they did, because I am 100% convinced that they just basically white-faced.
I'm so offended.
George Hamilton.
I'm so offended.
Yeah, they had to like whiteface George Hamilton to look more Santa-esque,
right,
if you will. Yeah. Creative KV wrote, I'm imagining some thick Girl Valley accent. Yeah, but it's inconsistent.
Right.
Creative KV. Lindsay's character, sometimes she's kind of Valley girlish, sometimes she's not, and I think at this point she almost completely stops doing the accent.
Yeah, it clears up pretty fast.
But anyways, so yeah, Santa's telling her how he has problems with Miss Claus. Lindsay offers to help Santa with a makeover, and we get a montage of Santa and Lindsay working out. So we see him doing aerobics, different on a bicycle, but he's always in the Santa suit.
Right.
And there's also like a few other things like Santa. Just to be clear, this mall Santa is also the real Santa.
Yes, he just happened to be working at this mall in, I don't know, this like town where they shot this. Like felt like someplace in the southeast. Like almost felt like Valdosta, Georgia, to me, or something.
Yeah,
and
it felt like a little rural town that happens to have a big mall for it.
Yeah,
for the town.
Exactly, and I also got vibes from Santa with Muscles, because these are just both Christmas movies that take place in areas with like no snow and like very little sort of Christmas vibes because of where they take place, basically.
So yeah, Creative KV was talking about how it's hilarious how actors just change their accent throughout the production and the director doesn't notice. And I think I think they shot some of this in order is what happened. And the director initially told her to play it up like Alicia Silverstone from Clueless, and then at some point they just dropped it.
Yeah.
And then they don't have the money to go back and reshoot. They got to save that reshoot money for the Too Cool for Christmas version with two dads.
Right, and plus, I mean, this is a TV movie, so I'm sure they were like shooting fast and loose. As you said, they didn't have a lot of time to go back and do reshoots because you're not Valley Girl enough. Hey, I need more Valley Girl. Right.
Yeah. So anyway, so we see this like, and by the way, when Lindsay was talking to Santa, he was like saying things, to clue you in that he's the real Santa. Like she's like, can you stop referring to your wife as Miss Claus? And he's like, would you prefer Miss Kringle? Things like that. Anyways, so this montage goes over 3 weeks of them working out. Over those next 3 weeks, Santa loses like 50 pounds somehow.
It's miraculous. Not since Battlestar Galactica have I seen a guy lose weight that quickly.
Oh my God. I used to have a shirt that said like, I love fat Lee Adama.
That's a deep cut. I like it.
And on it had like a drawing of him. Like, I don't know if you remember the scene from Battlestar Galactica where he's like shirtless and he's got the fat suit on. And anyway, that was actually one of my favorite subplots from Battlestar Galactica.
Of course it was.
Just because it was so ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
Creative KV, I don't think this was supposed to be a film festival winner. maybe some kind of tanning festival.
Yeah, there you go.
Winner.
The Sundance Tanning Festival. I know it well.
So in this montage, though, there is a really, I thought it was a really funny scene. We see Santa Claus in the locker room, and there's two other guys in the locker room talking. And one guy is like telling his buddy, hey, you know that girl that was on the XYZ machine, exercise machine? Yeah, I banged her the other night. Don't tell my wife about it. Ha ha ha. And Santa's like all disappointed when he overhears this, and he pulls out like a notepad or something, and he crosses the guy's name off the good list.
Like that guy in the back, I was like, man, was that Mike Laboska?
Oh.
I assume he doesn't listen. So, tell him I love him. Tell him I said hello.
All right. More importantly, let's hope his significant other does not listen. All right. So, anyways, we cut to Chuck, the mall cop, again, and he's like writing up this old lady that has a walking stick, cane or something. He's like writing her up for walking too slowly.
Right, yeah.
Saying that, you know, she's a danger to like the mall flow of traffic or something stupid.
Yeah.
And as he's writing her up again, the punk boys throw a hamburger at him. But Chuck kind of leaves because he's like scared of them, basically.
Right.
You know, he doesn't confront. So now we see that Lindsay is buying Santa clothes. We get a montage of Santa trying on clothes, including like Run DMC Adidas like sweats, but they're like green and red like Santa Claus.
Miami Vice like suit, white suit, basically. Yeah. With 80s music playing in the background.
Yeah, and George Hamilton's doing the classic I'm a white guy, middle-aged white guy doing the yo-yo kind of thing.
That killed me deep inside.
Yeah, and then Lindsay kind of does it too. Although I think she's supposed to do it sarcastically, but I don't know.
I thought Lindsay didn't understand sarcasm, according to her dad, but
yeah,
what do I know?
Well, maybe that explains why her delivery was so poor, actually, Steve. That's just good characterization.
There you go.
All right. So Santa eventually ends up with a really nice suit that he's picked out for what he's going to wear, but he still has his long hair and beard. So Lindsay says, we got to take you to a salon for a haircut. Santa says that Miss Claus cuts his hair basically with a Flowbee. He says like a vacuum cleaner, which is what a Flowbee is.
This is one of many random 2000s references that show up.
Well, like the Flowbee was more like mid-90s. I think even by this point, the Flowbee was like a little bit of a dated reference. But
there's many.
Certainly a lot more dated now.
I mean, there was an Energizer Bunny reference earlier in the film.
I
can't remember what it was for, but I was like, oh, that's going in my notes.
Creative KV says, I can't tell if you're selling us this movie or if it's a grave warning. You know, I got to be honest, even at this point, I'm not sure how I'm going to rate this.
Same here. Yeah, wait till the end, buddy. I know you will. Wait till the end.
All right. So they take him to get to a hairdresser to get his hair cut. And of course, the hairdresser, he's super flamboyant, you know, which is kind of it's kind of ironic that they would have like your gay stereotype from the early 2000s where it's like a guy he's a hairdresser, so he's got to be gay if he's a guy, and he's super over the top, considering that, there's the version of this movie with two dads instead.
I hear you, but this thing it's very cartoony. I don't think it's done out of like malice or anything.
I don't think so either. But, I think... And I don't think the Asian accent guy was out of malice either. Right. I think that they were trying to do something over the top and funny, but it's like when you have like several of those things, and then it's kind of like why? But anyway, see, I think it would have been more funny if you make your male hairdresser, like super butch and like super like alpha
a dude
tough.
Who works out or something with a Punisher
like subvert the expectations.
Well,
like have.
I mean, this is a very cool Christmas. I don't think they're going to try to subvert anyone's expectations. They're just trying to like kill an hour and a half and give like the family a couple of chuckles, basically.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Creative KV said he's theorizing that Santa goes to jail after some retribution.
Man, that's something fun. So
unfortunately, no one goes to jail. So the makeover takes. We see a bunch of like different haircuts on Santa. Eventually, they cut his hair short, and then they do like this weird sequence for cutting his beard, where like the beard hair is just like flying up into the air.
Yeah.
So, and then they take Santa to get a tan. And then once he comes out, we finally get to see George Hamilton in his George Hamilton essence, wearing a nice, well-fitted suit,
Yeah.
tan, looking like $1 million.
And just in
He comes
case
out
you're
and
thinking, what you need to picture in your mind, it's like they didn't like turn him into like sort of an updated 2000s like Santa Claus or something. They just turned him into George Hamilton, the same one that shows up into all those sketches playing himself basically. His like suit isn't even like red or has white trim. It's like literally a suit from George Hamilton's closet, like basically.
yeah. It's very nicely like tailored. It looks good on him and all that stuff. But yeah, it's George Hamilton.
Yeah, and
basically.
And there's no indication that he's Santa, which I don't know. Not saying I had high expectations for this film, but like I hate when movies do that and then you lose like any kind of indication that he was like Santa at all. They did the same thing. And did you ever see Jesus Christ versus Vampires, or Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter? Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter?
No, that's sacrilegious, and I would never. No, but I haven't seen it.
Well, it's pretty fun, but yeah, like after like 10, he shows up in your typical Jesus outfit, but then they give him a makeover and he doesn't look like Jesus anymore. So it kind of kills the comedy and the mystique, basically, which is what I feel like what happened here.
Well, I didn't mind so much because I came to the movie for George Hamilton more than Santa. I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
I watch a George Hamilton movie to see George Hamilton be George Hamilton. So when I saw him
finally in the Shakespeare in the Park production of Romeo and Juliet, he just played George Hamilton. He didn't even play Romeo.
Look, Steve. In most Christmas movies, the big reveal moment is when X character, Tim Allen or whoever, finally becomes your stereotypical Santa.
Yeah.
No. In a George Hamilton movie, the Iron Man suit moment is when he's George Hamilton.
So if he were playing Superman would just turn into George Hamilton, is what you're saying.
Yeah, if he was really super.
Yeah, right.
All right.
I'm glad we're in agreement.
Anyways, yeah, moving right along, Santa, now looking all George Hamilton-esque, goes to Santa Hamilton, if you will.
Yes.
He goes back to the upscale store from earlier where they treated him like jerk, or they were jerks to him, I should say. And he tells them that they made a mistake for not believing in Santa and being rude, and that they're not gonna. He tells the guy that was rude to me, he's not gonna get anything for Christmas. Which I love that Santa's like petty.
Yeah. He's gonna rain down Santa's vengeance, Santa Hamilton's vengeance.
This little aside, because he does this, like he tells Lindsay that, I'll be back. I'll meet you in like 20 minutes. I got something to go take care of. So like Santa secretly has all these like petty like feuds that he's just like resolving. So I kind of love that.
It's fun
for Santa.
It's fun.
Anyway, Lindsay and Santa now, they're in the food court. There were also some like ladies like eyeballing Santa, like talking about how hot he is. And actually, when they reveal George Hamilton, 16-year-old Lindsay says, "Wow, for an older guy, you're pretty hot."
Yeah, Lindsay is a red-blooded American female. That's who likes to bang, apparently. But good for
no
her.
one can resist George Hamilton.
I guess not.
Okay, so Anderson shows up at the food court, and Lindsay tries to hide from him behind Santa, but Anderson sees her. Anderson compliments Santa. Everybody wants to bang Santa. Anderson compliments Santa, and he says something about his suit being real nice, and he just gives him like this seductive look. Anyways, Lindsay and Anderson have
that may or may not have happened, everyone.
I think it happened. Lindsay and Anderson have a awkward conversation, and Anderson leaves, and Santa like actually thinks that Lindsay hates Anderson because of the way she treats him. Santa and Lindsay talk about the ski trip, and Lindsay like explains her stupid big plan to be rude to him all year just to kiss him now, even though she didn't know until 3 weeks ago that he was even going on this trip. But whatever.
But she doesn't even say kiss. She says be alone with him. Be alone.
That's right.
With him.
Oh, that can mean she might be planning to kill him.
Yeah, in a different movie, a different Lifetime movie. Yeah, that could be happening.
Creative KV in the chat had another No Fear shirt. This could actually work for a wrestling shirt too. No need to have suspension of disbelief if you never believed in the first place. No fear.
That's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, that's also for your local church. It's a great shirt from
Oh, nailed. Zing.
Oh, nailed. I
Got a million of them.
layers upon layers.
Only
That's that
someone
Michael
would
Gelbert inspired comedy.
Pilot this show.
You lost me there.
Pontius Pilate.
Pontius Pilate?
The
What?
guy who crucified Jesus? Pontius Pilate.
I
All right,
mean,
let's-
what do you mean the guy who? Are you talking about Judas, the guy that like betrayed Jesus?
No, the guy who nailed Jesus to the cross.
Oh! I'm sorry. I thought you were trying to say like that the guy that betrayed him. I'm like, that's not who betrayed him.
No. All right. This is taking
Chris Jericho has a song about this.
Oh, God. I hate that
Anyway.
song so much. Anyway.
I'm kind of over it too. Okay, back to the story here. So Lindsay says that, this is a chance to finally spend time alone with them. She says that she's rejected him 27 times. Santa thinks Lindsay's approach is weird. And she gets mad at Santa, who, and they're like walking out of the mall, and they're walking out to they're walking out to her car, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go. And he starts walking towards his sleigh that only has one reindeer.
Right.
Lindsay is shocked and now immediately accepts that he's the real Santa just because there's a sleigh with a reindeer out there. She asks, like, where's the other reindeer? He says, that they're for show, that he had to cut back on the number of reindeer because of expenses and the reindeer union.
So
surely it's not because of the budget of the movie.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. How meta.
Yeah. So then George Hamilton also goes on to like talk about how Santa's magic works by tugging on his ears. Like,
I hate
the number of times you tug on his ears, a different magical act happens.
Yeah.
And this sounds. Are you aware of what umox is?
No, but I'm sure you're going to tell me.
So the Ferengi from Star Trek have very large ears, and those ears of theirs are also an erogenous zone. And their ears being tugged and massaged is something called umox. It's like a sexual act. So basically, George Hamilton is like, umox my ears for magic. Anyway.
Well, can I just say, all right, okay, so that of course what you told me is weird, but why didn't they just do the old? Doesn't Santa usually do like a this with his nose or something, and then goes up the?
Well, I actually know why they didn't do that, and George Hamilton has done so much cocaine in his life that he can't. His nose, the structure does not support flicking the nose anymore.
Okay,
so.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, no problem. No, but they actually do talk about it because she says, doing something to your nose. Lindsay actually says that, like, I dream of Jeannie. And George Hamilton says, like Christina Aguilera? And she's like, no, like Eden, I don't know, whoever the I Dream of Jeannie actress was.
Right.
So. It was not funny unless you were alive in 1965.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Santa asked Lindsay to go with him to deliver presents. She's like, I'll go with you, but not in your sleigh. It's unsafe. We can use my car because Santa had mentioned that he can make anything fly. So they get in Lindsay's car, loaded up with, big red bags of presents. And Chuck sees Lindsay and Santa driving away with all these red bags and assumes that she stole stuff from the mall. And he's like, I'm going to get her or something like that.
Right. Let me ask you, what did you think of their, magical SFX when the car was like driving away? Did it remind you of a popular program at the time that was used specifically for that?
No, go ahead and tell me what you're
Particle
talking
illusion. You never used particle
Oh,
illusion?
yeah. I never use it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, so there's a blue screen from now on almost any time they're in the car.
Right.
And because at this point, they're just on the road. So I don't really know why they needed to blue screen this. But it's pretty bad. They did not key it out very well. Santa says that he can speak Cantonese by tugging on his left ear 4 times. And I don't think he was speaking real Cantonese. I think this is just George Hamilton doing like a quote unquote funny Chinaman sounds kind of a thing. And oof.
I agree.
So this is what I'm saying. I don't think any of this stuff was malicious in the movie. Like, but there's kind of a few incidents of it where it's like,
It's just stuff they thought
you
was
know,
funny at the time that has kind of
yeah,
aged out from the
yeah,
times.
exactly. And honestly, I mean, I don't think this would have been even funny then.
No, definitely not.
So this almost feels like an ad lib by George
Sure.
Hamilton, to be honest. Anyways, so Santa tugs on his ears however many times he needs to make the car fly, and they start flying in the air, and very unconvincing visual effects, as Steve said. This is where we like see now back at Lindsay's house. It's current day, and the uncle's there for Christmas. And like I mentioned earlier, the uncle is there as Santa using a white grocery store plastic bag as the white beard. I mean, it's kind of funny, but at this point, like Steve said, the movie does drag a little bit in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, you're just kind of like, all right, let's get to the last act.
Yeah, it took me 2 sittings to get through this. When I came back for my second one, I was like, oh man, 40 minutes left?
I did it in 2 sittings too, but that's just because I had something to do.
Mm-hmm.
Much like George Hamilton's Santa, I had
You
to
had
go
to
yell
tan.
at
Yeah.
So blah 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 blah. Where we at? Paige, Lindsay's friend, calls Lindsay's family to ask if Lindsay's there, and they're like, nope, she's not here. So no one knows where Lindsay is, and the parents kind of get a little worried and try to like start calling people to figure it out. Chuck, the mall cop, shows up at Lindsay's house, and he presents to the father a Blockbuster card as his ID card.
I loved it. I fucking laughed. I'll admit it. Like this is when the movie started winning me over, unfortunately.
And then he says, the dad's like, that's not a driver's license. That's not an ID. And then Chuck says that he failed his driver's test. And we cut to a flashback of like Chuck already like crashed. He's crashed a car against a tree, and the car's like dented and it's smoking. And Chuck, he says, and this made me laugh out loud, and you're going to fail me for that?
Yeah.
And then we cut back to like Chuck and the dad, and then Chuck says that those driver's license tests are racially biased. Chuck is white, by the way.
Yes, the whitest of
He's
white
like as
guys.
white as it gets.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. So it was kind of funny. And it's funny because it like subverts the expectations.
Yes.
Anyways, so Chuck says, I have news about Lindsay that you want to hear. Now we cut to Lindsay and Santa again. They're on somebody's roof delivering presents. We get some bad VFX of how like they are able to like squeeze in through the chimney.
Yeah, more particle illusion. Yeah.
I was just gonna say more particle illusion work. She won't let Santa eat like cookies at these houses. We find out that like Santa makes like little tiny presents that are in the bag. He pulls them out. They're like the size of a thimble, and then by rubbing his ears sexually, they blow up into the actual size.
It's Shinchi, which is a reference to a Christopher Walken SNL sketch. But
yes.
Yeah.
Smoke Monster asks, where's the RoboCop tied?
Yeah, Robo-Vember is over, buddy. It's all about Christmas cheer and jingling of bells.
I bet there's a comic book, RoboCop comic book that's like about Santa, Christmas, and he does some Robo-Claws thing.
I will try to find it.
All right, so back to Lindsay's house. The Chuck is telling Lindsay's telling the family that Lindsay left the mall with an older man. How dare you? George Hamilton is timeless. Left the mall with an older man and stolen merchandise. Her parents are worried, but they don't really believe him. Then we go back to Lindsay and Santa again. There's a lot of this back and forth.
Yes.
And like this time, this tabloid photographer takes a picture of Santa, and Santa's like, hey, get over here. Don't you remember little Billy or whatever his name was when I bought you your first camera?
Right.
And the guy's like, oh, you don't understand, Santa. I need this to sell your pictures to get money to have braces for my kid.
Right.
And then Santa tugs his ears. We hear like a little twinkle of magic sound. And he says, I think you need to get a second opinion about your kid's teeth. So I'm confused here. Did Santa straighten his kid's teeth?
What it certainly sounds
Or-
like. Yeah, I think this is outside of Santa's jurisdiction. This is more of a tooth fairy kind of thing.
Tooth fairy situation,
Yeah.
right? And or like, is Santa going to? Has he made the dentist give him like free braces? I don't know.
Here's the thing. If Santa indeed has the ability to straighten another person's teeth, so obviously his powers have the ability to affect, the physical, why couldn't he have just made himself into George Hamilton at the beginning and, sexually arouse Mrs. Claus just by doing this,
That's a good question.
You think about
Steve.
that tonight, ladies and gentlemen, when you're trying to sleep at night.
Well, we do find out at the end that, like, I guess, like, this was Santa's plan all along. Basically, Santa has very Jesus-like powers and abilities throughout this movie, because I think the ending implies that the reason why he was working at the mall was to meet Lindsay.
Yeah.
All along.
Yes.
Anyway, so where are we at here? Oh God. And also while they're on the roof, speaking of like jokes of the time, Santa talks about how, like, you never know what people are going to do with the presents you give them. Some of them do good stuff. Some of them do bad stuff. This is before the tabloid photographer shows up, and he says, I gave William Hung his first karaoke machine.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. I put that in my notes. And before that, though, I don't exactly remember what brought it on. I think it was because Santa was afraid of the tabloid photographer taking a picture of him and Lindsay together. And Lindsay says, she's a saucy gal. She says, I won't be dating guys your age until I'm well into my 20s. Whoa.
Whoa. But how good of Lindsay to know where her life is headed.
Yeah. Well, it's either that or to like a Girls Gone Wild video, but
yeah. But even though we're told she gets straight A's.
yeah. Hey,
but
you can still get good grades and be sexually promiscuous.
Yeah. Well, she's not going to be. I think she just wants like a sugar daddy.
That's what it sounds like.
And I guess Santa would be like the ultimate sugar daddy.
Yes, he would.
Not only in terms of what he can give you, but he probably has candy canes like all the time. Anyway, so then we get a montage of the rest of the presents being delivered. Thank God. There's a dumb joke here where like we're back at the parents' house and Chuck is like gives them a picture of to Lindsay's parents and says, this is a picture of a person's brain that's been because she's trying to get the parents to sign a contract to ban Lindsay from the mall.
For life, yeah. And he goes on
For life.
This rant/monologue saying, because they were complimentary of the mall, and he was like, oh yes, thank you, but it's too late for the mall because it's corrupt. Are the kids corrupting the mall, or the mall corrupting the kids?
I'll get to it. So first he tries to convince them that the AC in the mall is going to damage her brain, and he's like, here's a picture of a teenager that's breathed in like a mall air conditioning for like 3 years, and they're like, this is a picture of you dressed up as Tarzan, and they show the picture and it's legitimately a picture of the actor when he was younger dressed as Santa. Like, it was so weird.
And he was like, oh, I had fun that day.
So weird that this guy wrote this into so for those that are just joining us in the live chat, like Smoke Monster, this guy that plays the mall cop also wrote the movie.
Gilbert.
So he wrote,
or Gilbert.
Yeah. So he wrote this joke because he had this picture of himself into the movie. Anyways, and he says something like, yeah, isn't this bad? Just as bad or something. I don't know. Anyway, so then Lindsay calls Paige and tells Paige, hey, I'm with Santa. And Paige was sleeping. So Lindsay woke her up when she called. And she tells Paige, hey, call my parents and tell them I'm with you. Don't fall back asleep. Call them right away. She's like, okay, no problem. I won't fall asleep. Immediately falls asleep. Then we cut to a montage of Lindsay's dad remembering all the times that Lindsay went to the mall instead of spending time with the family. So, like, oh, he asked her to go see a movie. She's like, no, I'm going to the mall. He's like barbecuing. She's like, no, I don't want your fucking barbecue. I'm going to the mall to get Sbarro instead. Stuff like that.
the worst.
It's a gut bomb. So anyways, the dad is finally about to sign this contract, which is like super thick. It's like the
A
size of
phone
like
book.
War and Peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a phone book. So the dad's about to sign it. He's got his pen to the paper, but then Paige wakes up. She's like, "Oh shit!" Calls the dad and says, "Hey," lies. Says Lindsay's here. And the dad like is like tells the mom, "Oh, guess what? Lindsay was at the Paige's house this whole time, but she just fell asleep." Ha ha ha. So the moral of the story is lying always works. Lie to your
Sure.
parents.
Or if you're RoboCop and you have a gun, it's the solution to all the problems.
Yes, exactly. So dad doesn't sign the papers. He throws Chuck out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Now we see that Santa and Lindsay have stopped at Anderson's house. Lindsay's mad about it and doesn't want to go in, but Santa's like, no, we're gonna go in anyway.
Yeah.
Lindsay sees a picture of Anderson's family and says that they're genetically perfect superhumans. They're the most average looking people.
Right. Yeah. What a.
And I would argue his little brother's kind of ugly. But
Yeah, a little bit.
yeah.
Sure.
I don't know. It was very like when she said genetically perfect superhumans. It was very Final Solution esque, if you
I
will.
mean, she's already hanging out with George Hamilton. How much more perfect can you get than him?
Right. Lindsay's like, we're gonna have the perfect Aryan kids.
Yeah, right.
Uh, although Anderson's like, a brunette or has black hair. Anyways, so we see Anderson comes down the stairs. So Lindsay and Santa jump behind the couch. Anderson comes down shirtless, and Lindsay is, thirsty and staring.
Oh, yeah.
But Anderson wakes up in the middle of the night to drink some milk. Gross. And he goes back upstairs. He doesn't see them, and Lindsay then says, "Beam me back up to the roof."
Mm-hmm. Oh, I bet that. I bet that really triggered you as a Star Trek fan.
It did trigger me. Did you know that Kirk never actually says "beam me up, Scotty"?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay, I'm proud of it. So, anyways, Lindsay goes back up to the roof. Santa finishes putting the presents down, and then Santa sneaks a little red envelope into Anderson's stocking because Santa also found him irresistible.
Yeah. Yeah, this is actually called a Christmas three-way.
Yes, and that's why the next scene is Santa on the roof telling Lindsay that he thinks everybody is cute, and then he tells Lindsay he thinks she is very cute. I think it is very weird.
Yeah, a little bit. But it was 2004. Things were different back then.
Yeah. Yeah, because for whatever reason, Lindsay all throughout the movie keeps asking Santa what he thinks about people's level of attractiveness. Like, don't you think such and such is cute? Like, it's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If they wanted to drive, they never really could figure out what Lindsay as a character was lacking. Was she selfish? Was she too superficial? Or ultimately, it just came to she didn't want to spend Christmas at home with her family. Like, that was...
It's like she doesn't appreciate her family, I guess, is the...
Yeah, but like...
But they don't really have a terrible relationship.
No, they don't.
She just wants to go bang Anderson.
Yeah, and also as a, I don't know, 16 or 24-year-old woman, like, I think it would have been okay to spend one Christmas with the neighbors. Like, I mean, so who's to blame here?
But she's 16.
Right, no, I know. But who's to blame?
Supposed to be, at
right.
least.
Is the dad the one to blame here? Or, I mean, she already gets straight A's. I mean, what more can she do to, like, get a little bit of freedom is all I'm saying. Just to play devil's advocate.
Well, I mean,
to
be fair, her parents seem to buy her anything she wants.
So they're to blame.
So,
there you go. Blame the parents.
So, yeah. You know what? Everyone's to blame in this movie.
Thank you.
Except for George Hamilton.
Santa Yahel. Thank you.
All right. So we're back at the mall. Chuck finds Santa's sleigh at the mall, and he calls for backup repeatedly, but
Can I just
no one's
say
answering.
real quick, though, as he's like, Chuck is like power walking through the parking lot, he starts with the "someday a rain is gonna come" speech, and I just like completely died. Like, you can hear that in like Taxi Driver, and I think even Rorschach says it in like the Watchmen movie.
It's that kind of speech.
Yeah. And then he stands right in front of the neon sign, and they like shot him from below. There's actually some interesting cinematography in this movie at times. So of course, I really appreciated that shot. And then what I wrote down here, the Chuck Wagon. He refers to himself as the Chuck Wagon at some point.
Yeah. He said, because no one's answering his calls for backup.
Right.
And he's like, well, I guess it's just up to you, Chuck Wagon, or something like that.
See?
Anyways, we cut to Santa and Lindsay. They're in her driveway. Santa makes her go in to drop off her sister's present. As Lindsay's dropping off her present, her little sister Alexa catches her. And Alexa and Lindsay's like, oh, Santa wanted me to drop this off. And then Alexa says, oh, you idiot, you whore. I asked Santa for you as my present.
Yeah.
I should mention that just before this, Santa and Lindsay have a conversation in the driveway where Lindsay says, look, Santa keeps trying to convince her to like spend Christmas with her family. And she's like, look, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go drop off this present. I know you think that me dropping off this present is going to somehow like pull out my heartstrings and make me change my mind, but it's not going to happen. So when I come back, if I still want to go to the ski trip, will you drop it? And George Hamilton is like, yes, I'll drop it. But he smiles and she's like, I know you think that this is going to change my mind, but it's not.
Right.
And, George Hamilton, he lets off a little knowing smile as Lindsay goes in. And of course, once Lindsay hears from her little sister that all she wanted from Christmas was for her to be home, Lindsay comes back into the car and it worked. And Lindsay is like, tells George Hamilton, shut up, and
slaps
Lindsay's
her
like,
around a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Lindsay like tells Santa, you knew that this was going to happen, didn't you?
And George Hamilton was just like, well, I've been manipulating women since the 60s, so I knew I was going to come out on top.
Yeah, pretty much. It basically like Santa here implies that he was manipulating the entire situation from the beginning leading up to this
He's
moment.
the Kaiser Soze of Christmas movies.
Yes. So anyways, Lindsay takes Santa back to his sleigh at the mall. As they're walking towards the sleigh, Chuck pops out of the sleigh. Santa says that Chuck was the only boy to ever not be on his good list, which is weird. It's worse than Hitler?
Yeah.
This guy?
Yeah, what about Genghis Khan? Like,
I don't know.
They make the list.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
Very
but
weird.
I think they're just trying to reinforce that that's why he's such a
the way he is
snotty guy. Yeah.
And I will say, I was thinking the whole time they're gonna redeem Chuck at some point,
too.
And they're about to do it. Chuck's about to, Santa's about to, I don't know, bring up something from Chuck's past, something that happened, and explain to him about the spirit of Christmas and blah blah blah, and everything's gonna. And I thought the movie was gonna end with Chuck, Anderson, and Lindsay spending Christmas at Lindsay's family.
I saw that ending too in my headcanon.
Well, that is not what's gonna happen at all.
Those hamburger punks show up and start throwing.
Yeah, the hamburger punks show up, and Santa's like, "Fuck Chuck."
Yeah,
he was never on my good list.
Yeah,
he's just like the adulterer I met earlier today. By the way, like 90% of this movie takes place on Christmas Eve, also, which is weird.
Yeah, well,
like from his makeover forward is all Christmas Eve.
No, I thought it was the makeover, but they started working out and. In the
from when he gets his haircut forward, it's Christmas Eve.
Yeah, gotcha.
So yeah, I should have been more specific. So anyways, like you said, the punks show up, and this time the punks have like, I don't know, like a million hamburgers
sack of hamburgers, yeah.
Yeah, they're just like chucking hamburgers at Chuck. And as Chuck is yelling, excuse me. So they're throwing the hamburgers at them, and then one of the punks stops in front of Santa and says, "Yo, Santa, that soup be cracking."
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Chuck is running away, and this cracked me up. A car like that's driving by stops like right where Chuck is, and I guess he's like trying to get help. The car rolls out its window, and it's Allison, the girl he went on a date with on the dating show.
Can I say, before the window went down, like the look of that SUV, it was like all black. You couldn't see in through the through the windows. I was like, is he going to get abducted by the Russian mafia? Like, that's just what I was like, man, would that have been random? But no, you're right. It's Allison, the girl he dated on the previously mentioned dating show all the way back at the beginning of the movie. And yes, she rolls down the window, sees him, screams just like she did on.
Just screams at him
and drives away. Yeah,
drives off. And like, man, I didn't even realize that was a Chekhov's gun when they first showed the dating.
Right?
Clip.
Yeah, in some ways, this script is kind of smarter than it needs to be.
There's quite a few decent payoffs.
Yeah.
You know, I gotta admit, and like it seems like the punks, it's also kind of implied that like Santa called for them or knew that they were going to be there too, because he's kind of like he's like on the punk side. There was something that happened in the exchange, I can't remember exactly. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So yeah, Chuck runs away, he gets chased away. That's the last we see of Chuck. Then Lindsay thanks Santa for showing her what matters. Santa tells her never to forget about Cupid.
Yeah, that was weird. I didn't get that. I guess.
And she says, I won't. I for sure won't. As if they had previously talked about Cupid.
It sounds like either that was a deleted scene or Cupid is supposed to be a metaphor for love, possibly. Like,
I think what it is that she doesn't know that he left that note and that he's Cupid. And you know, what basically they should have done is in this next scene where we see Lindsay's at home with her family. It's now Christmas Day. And by the way, her and her family, there's like 5 of them sitting on a couch made for like 3 people.
Yeah. They couldn't spend money.
They're all like shoulder to shoulder, thigh to thigh. And they're also sitting like 4 feet in front of a CRT 32-inch TV or something. Like, it's very weird. But the doorbell rings. It's Anderson. Anderson's like, hey, I got your note. She's like, what note are you talking about? He's like, the note you left in my you left in my stocking. Or he says that you got one of my friends to sneak into my stocking is what he assumes happened.
Right. I mean, he could never imagine a world where Lindsay would be insane enough to break into his house and put the note in there.
Honestly, Anderson is kind of like the most, aside from Santa, the most likable character probably in this. The dad's not bad either, dad and mom.
Right.
But, you know, he's pretty reasonable and way too patient when it comes to this girl.
Yeah, sure.
But, he says that Anderson tells her that the note said that, like, if he was willing to not go on the ski trip, he could spend Christmas with her and her family. And also the note said that, like, sorry about me being mean to you, but I really like you. And also I'm way too into clothes. Sometimes it said something like that. Yeah. I care too much about clothes. It's just like Santa being funny,
pointing
I guess.
out all of her flaws. Yeah.
But she insists that she didn't write this note and is practically kicking him out. I'm like, what the fuck? And I think at this point, the idea was that like Lindsay would go, oh, Cupid, and like realize it was Santa.
Right. Yeah.
But, you know, but they didn't do it like that. You know, he's like, oh, well, I guess I'm just a big, Anderson's like, I guess I'm just a big idiot and I'll just be going home now. Yep. And then Lindsay's like, no, come in. And he's like, I'm really confused. You're really confusing, motherfucker. Yeah. And Lizzie grabs him and just gives him a big kiss to get rid of his confusion and give him a boner instead. And then they go in. And that's pretty much it. She admits that she likes him.
You didn't mention the scene where Anderson's trying to sit down on the couch, but he can't because of his massive boner.
I failed to mention that. Then we cut to our actual last scene, which is back at the Santa Claus home. And Santa Claus is arriving. He walks in through the door, and Miss Claus, earlier she was wearing like your traditional big Miss Claus granny dress. Yeah. This time she's wearing like not a super tight, but kind of a form-fitting red dress.
Evening gown,
looks really nice.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. And she's got a makeover too. She's got blonde hair now, and she says that Miss Claus says to Santa, oh, it looks like we both got each other the same gift. Makeovers. They kiss, and these 2 very tan people send us to credits.
Yes, we can only assume that they were making Santa love during the credits for sure.
Yes,
getting tanning oil everywhere, basically. But
yes.
Yeah, that's the movie. I know. All right, shall we just go ahead and render it? What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's render it. I did get a little bit extra time, but
okay. Well, we'll see.
Remember before rated. That's the question.
All right, Santa Velasquez, do you think that kind of has a nice ring to it? Do you think that a very cool Christmas, aka too cool for Christmas, depending on where you're from, should be remembered for all of holiday history, or tossed in the black void of obscurity, never to be heard from again?
It could definitely use improvements. Like we mentioned, it definitely drags a bit too much in the middle, even kind of close to the last act. It drags a little bit. But it's just supposed to be like a harmless family Christmas movie, and in that vein, something that you can watch with your whole family, regardless of the age group. And I've seen a lot worse of those types of movies than this. And there are some like genuinely like funny things in it. So I'm actually going to say this could be remembered. I wouldn't watch this every year or anything. But hey, especially if you're popping a gummy, this would be fun to watch. But yeah, I'm actually going to give it a remember.
Yeah, I was prepared to hate this. Like I thought.
I know you were.
I thought it was going to be.
When I first suggested it to you, you were like, "Well, you're doing the fucking write-up."
And I thought it wasn't going to be, so bad it's good. I thought it was just going to be middling and forgettable. But there was a lot of wackiness thrown in here that I really appreciated, and stuff that made me genuinely belly laugh, like Gilbert. What's his whole name? Like Mike Gilbert. Yeah. Michael Gilbert, the writer and
/ actor behind Chuck.
Like his ridiculous, over the top performance pretty much steals the movie. Like if it had been him the entire time, I don't think I could probably handle it, because he's a lot to take in.
He'd be too much.
Yes, he would. But when he was on camera, I was laughing. Like at first, when he showed up, I was sort of rolling my eyes. Yeah, of course,
me too.
Douchebag security guard. That's been done a million times. But when he showed up and started monologuing at the parents' house, acting like a Batman villain that we love so much here on Obscurity Now, I was like, and then actually getting me to laugh, which I have a hard time finding stuff that makes me laugh these days. I was like, man, it kind of won me over in the end. So, yeah.
And it really works, the monologue stuff, because he's so unhinged by that point. But it's just like he's been getting more and more progressively annoyed throughout the whole movie. And plus, of his backstory, he fails at dating. He fails at being a cop. He fails at getting his driver's test. He's scared of the boys throwing hamburgers at him, And this is like the final straw for him, So it actually makes sense.
I could watch like a 15 to 20 minute like adult swim show starring him that I think
about him. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So wow, remember.
All right, here we go.
In accordance to Obscurity Now, the most important streaming YouTube podcast in all of the internet, you shall be remembered. Yes. Good show. Good show.
So yeah, I think you had it right, watching it on a gummy or two. And I think it's interesting that you brought up gummies, because I've got a hypothesis that I'm running with these days that I would like to throw out into the ether. So gummies have no effect on my beloved wife, who, as you know, is a Filipina. And then I have a friend who's also a Filipino, and he says that gummies don't affect him either. So if you're a Filipino, I'd like to know if gummies have any effect if you consume them. Go home and try it, kids, and let us know. Write in anywhere, Instagram, Twitter.
Wow.
Let us know in the comments. You'll be glad you did.
Okay, well.
I mean, are you ready to get out of here, or what are we doing?
Yeah, I do kind of.
Okay, all right. Well,
my sleigh is waiting for me outside.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us in our first installment of Obscure December. We don't have a cool name for it or anything.
Good thing we thought about this ahead of time.
Yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week with another sort of Christmassy thing right here on Obscurity Now. See you next time.
You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube.
Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links. If that's what you're into, I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.